So the first page, you'll see just a glossary of terms, various terms that I've used: terminal, hardware, WWW, Ethernet, Wi-Fi, cellular, satellite, software, and the like, whitelist, blacklist. So all of those are here, and that way, as I'm talking through these things, this would have been a good thing to give you early on. I'll know that for the next time around. I'll probably build on the glossary as well. But that is there. Then on the back of that, you have the little animation, or the graphic that I've made that kind of shows you how the internet works as a general rule, and can inspire a remembrance of those things through that. Now, the final page is the one that we're really talking about today. And this is a few different ideas as far as filtering services. The first thing that you have is the web addresses for filtering for Microsoft Windows devices, for Apple devices, and for Android devices. These are services that are offered by each of those companies, and it's connected very strongly to accounts. So what you would need to do for this is, if you've got an Android phone with a child, then they have to have their own separate Google account, and then you can connect their account to you as their parent. And then through that, you can say they may install certain apps, they may not. They can be on for an hour a day. It, of course, locks down the ability to install apps. And then it gives you a picture of how much time they're on their phone, how many times it gets unlocked, all of that. They are all comprehensive services as far as it goes. They do require you to have their apps to connect to their services and the like. And it's certainly there at your disposal. And those are free services. So I give you the web address to each one for Apple, for Android, and for Windows. Apple, of course, would allow you to protect iOS, iPadOS, and macOS devices. Microsoft would allow you to protect not just Microsoft devices. With Microsoft, you can actually protect any of the devices as long as they're using Microsoft's web browser, that being Microsoft Edge. It would not give you as much control on Android or iOS over the rest of the operating system. And then, of course, Apple for Apple's ecosystem. And then the next web address I give you is a filtering router. When I've talked about routers, and we'll talk about that a little bit more today, let me pull up Prezi. As we've talked about filtering routers, that's this part here. We've said that that's one of the areas where if you wanted to filter your whole house, you can do it at the router level. And what this router would do is it comes pre-installed with what's called pfSense, which is made by a company named Netgate. And it's a free product. They have a business end, but you can there install all of the things necessary to lock down anything that's behind the router. So effectively, the way that would be designed would be you'd have a router, and then after your router would come a wireless access point, and that wireless access point would give wireless access to everyone in the house, and people would connect to that with physical connections, and so everything would go through the access point, then to the router, and the router would control everything before it gets to the internet. So you can do that physical router as well. I am going to show you a way today to, if you're not too concerned with the in-depth nitty-gritty, where with your own router that you've already got, your wireless router, the one that was given to you when you got your internet service, or the one that you have at home, and also on your personal devices, you can direct them to a filtering service fairly simply, and protect your own in that way pretty well. So I give you the web address for pfSense. There are other filtering router companies. A lot of modern routers have those filtering options in them as well, and we can talk about that a little bit also. And then let's see. Let's get back to... and then this last little bit here is the DNS services. This was the last area where I said there's a lot of power in your hands, the DNS. And with these web addresses to 3 different DNS services, there's Cloudflare, AdGuard, and OpenDNS. I'm sure you could find other ones as well. All of them have a family DNS host name, where without even needing to do any sort of customization, if you point your devices toward family.cloudflaredns.com or family.adguarddns.com or familyshield.opendns.com, you point it there, and all of the traffic from that device is going to go through that DNS, and it will have filters on it. Now, you're beholden to their decisions as it relates to what ought or ought not be filtered. And there was a bit of a thing, I think it was a year or 2 ago, about this with Cloudflare, where in their family filter, they were filtering out stuff about transgenderism and whatnot. And then, of course, that community got all up in arms about that being filtered out of family filters, and so they allowed that through. So you are at their mercy. However, generally for pornography and all of those sorts of things, you'd have those filters there. So we're going to walk through some of these things today and then look at how we would set those up on any given device so that you can be semi-familiar. So the first thing I would say is that as it relates to protecting your family, one of the best things is accountability. We talked today about telling the truth in our Sunday morning service, right? Making sure that there's open communication, accountability, making sure that if you have a family computer, particularly young people on the computer, keep it in a public space. It's not always going to work for dads that need to do work at home or whatever the case may be, for it all to be in a public space. But public spaces are powerful as it relates to just keeping everyone accountable. So that first layer, the simplest, most obvious layer is maintain accountability. My wife knows the password for my phone. I know the password for her phone. She can, at any time she wants, open up my phone and see what I'm doing on my phone. She has the passwords to all of my computers. There's nothing that's hidden in that sense. Yes, I'm buried in my office with my computer, but my computer is not hidden from her as far as it goes. So there's that level of accountability. It's the most simple level. It's also, in that sense, the simplest to skirt if a person wants to. And with each one of these, we're adding a layer of, if a person is technologically knowledgeable or willful at hiding something, you add each successive layer. So we start with accountability. The next thing I would encourage, and I talked about this already, is an ad blocker. Now the modern versions of Chrome, Google's Chrome, are implementing a system where they're actually no longer going to allow ad blockers. Makes sense. Google's entire industry is about ads. So they're getting rid of the ability for Chrome to use ad blockers. So the best browsers for ad blocking are Firefox, Mozilla Firefox, or Brave. And Brave is a Chrome-based browser, but it is not stripping out the ability to have ad blockers. Brave is, in my opinion, the absolute best browser out there today, and I would encourage you to use it. It blocks ads by default. I use it on my tablet, I use it on my phone, I use it on my computer, and it's going to block every ad. I've already alluded a little bit to the gray area of ad blocking. The internet runs off of ads. When you are ad blocking, you are technically drying up the revenue source for people that rely on that revenue for their website to stay running. YouTube relies on ad revenue. It's why they go out of their way to block things, or block ad blockers, is because they rely on that avenue. To that extent, there is an argument to be made that there is an element of piracy or theft in ad blocking. However, ad blocking agencies are not governed anymore by any sort of moral entity like they used to be. And because they're not governed by a moral entity, I am simply not willing to risk my eyes and the eyes of my children on what some ad blocking service decides is okay or not okay anymore. So I made the moral choice to make sure that everything is blocked in my home. And I have an ad blocker at a router level. So we don't necessarily have to use this browser, but because my tablets aren't always connected, whatnot, it's just a great browser anyway. And it's a significantly more secure browser than others as well. For security and privacy reasons also I use Brave. So I would recommend Brave browser. As far as it goes, they'll block all of the ads. Now there's a few other things that you can do in Brave browser. So I have Brave browser here. And another thing that Brave does have, if I go to settings and I go to shields and privacy, there's lots of things here about blocking some things for privacy and security. But one of the things that it has is you can set it to its own DNS server. So I can point it toward one of those family DNS services to make the browser go through. Now I'm not going to do that because I'm going to do that on the device level. And I'm going to show you how to do it on the device level so that every browser and every app has to go through that DNS, not just Brave browser. But you can do that here. And then the other thing that Brave has is a filter list. Where is that? Okay. So you see here, content filtering. If I were to choose content filtering, Brave has a list of content filters. And there's a very popular list called Easy List Cookies that removes obtrusive cookies, mobile notifications, stops random notifications and whatnot. They've got a lot of those. Social, if I did Fanboy Social, that would get rid of all of those comment sections at the bottom of news articles. Like you have news and then you have the comments that people, and this will filter out all of those comment sections so you don't see them on any of your web pages. You can do that. You can also do that at the router level or with apps. That's a really good one because if I can control the banners, I can control the content, but I can't control what people say in those comments. Just get rid of the comments. They just go away. And you can do that on YouTube, by the way. You can make it to where you can have YouTube, but no comment. It blocks all the comments as well. Entirely possible. And that would be right here. YouTube mobile distractions. And so that would get rid of things like the comments, and that might even, with a lot of them, it even gets rid of the suggestions on the side, suggestion banners. Removes all of that. So you can do that, but this is only Brave, right? So this is only in this browser. It doesn't protect everything. We can talk about how to protect those things on a wider level. But this also does have an anti-porn. And it's not going to be the most comprehensive, but you check that, and you've got one layer right there that Brave itself will filter out some of these issues. And of course, they've got lots of other filters here, and you can play with those filters and see what each one does. You'd probably have to do a little bit of reading up on what each individual filter does. If you do too many filters, it's going to start bogging down your browser, right? So you want to choose them carefully. But this is there. At the end of that, I'm just going to hit this update button on the top right. And it's going to make sure that those are updated. And now I've got those updated. And so that was in Brave, Shields, and Privacy. And then in that, there's an area called Content Filtering. And you can find that on any Brave browser in the Shields and Privacy, Content Filtering, and you can tick those. At that point, even if you just did this, if you can trust your family enough to say, family, you're only using Brave browser, that's the only one we have installed on our machine, and they're not going to be technically literate enough to install other browsers and everything else, even at this point, you're already doing pretty well. Brave is going to block ads. It's going to block this content. It can block things off of YouTube that you don't want on YouTube. So even just there, you're doing okay. Cassandra?
So we had downloaded Brave, but we noticed that we couldn't undownload Safari. So how do you get rid of Safari?
No, Apple is never going to let you remove Safari from their machines, just like Microsoft is not going to let you remove Edge. So in that case, you either get rid of every shortcut, right, so that they'd have to go into all the menus to find Safari. And then you need to make sure that you make your default web browser Brave, or else it's going to open up default to Safari. Now, Safari might have, I admit, a level of ignorance as it relates to Apple devices because I just don't like them. Safari may have some of these features built in as well. Or once again, you can go to the the family area of Apple and set some of those things up. And some of the things that you can do there is you can block certain apps from being able to be opened or for being open for a certain amount of time and the like. So those are a possibility. But yes, there will be, even on Android, you can't get rid of Chrome on a normal Android device. But what you can do is in Chrome, I don't know, I don't use any of Google services. There's Chrome right there. And if I long press and hold, there's a disable option here. And if I disable Chrome, then Chrome is still installed on the operating system, but it's disabled. So it can't be used, and it won't be seen in any menus unless the children know how to go into settings, go into the apps, and re-enable the app. And so that is an option. Again, I don't know if Mac OS allows you to disable or not, or if there's an option on that. But once again, we're still at the very basics of protection. Now, something else that I have on Android here, and I don't have it installed on my tablet right now, but I've got a little, and I know that iOS has this by default. Android's getting it very soon by default. But I have a simple app called App Lock Pro. And it costs me $4. And I can choose system apps. You know what? I'm just going to, this might goof things up on the video, but we're going to just do this here. So you'll have to forgive my, so I'm a geek, so I run kind of a terminal launcher here. So I open up App Lock Pro, and it's going to throw me to a PIN number. I put in that PIN, which now you all know, and this has every app on my device. These are the system apps. I use Graphene, which is an offshoot of Android. It's not normal Android. Graphene strips all the Google stuff out of Android because I don't want them on my device. So I've got this unique, and then it's got all of my user apps. And if I choose any of these apps, so let's say in this case settings, now it's locked. And I come out of this. Now if I tried to open up settings, nope, that's not the settings I want. I'll just do it this way. If I try to open up settings, well, it let me do it. It's not supposed to do that. It's supposed to be locked. I wonder if I, oh, hang on, let me. Make sure that, no. Just make sure that we're still there. You'll well know my PIN by the end of this. Settings is locked, and I need to activate it. That's why. There we go, enable app lock. So I've enabled this app lock. Now on Google, in an Android phone, I have to give this lower level permissions on my phone so that I can see everything that's happening on the phone. I do that, and it's set to lock. I can also have it do fingerprint, but if it's the child's device and they're opening it with fingerprint, I don't want that. I want to have it with either a pin or a pattern that they don't know, right? So now that that's locked, and now in theory, when I try to open settings, it says, nope, that's locked out. So my children could not change any settings in their apps or in their phone without my permission. And then if I unlock it, now they can, I can access their settings. So this allows the phone to be locked down, and I don't have to pay a monthly subscription or anything. This is a $5 app in the Play Store. Again, iOS has this by default, where you can lock any app behind your fingerprint. As long as you're okay with your kids not having their fingerprints registered in their phone, if it's their phone, they have to punch in a PIN or whatever. You've got the fingerprint on there. They can't open certain apps or the browser, right? The main browser on my phone is called Vanadium. And so if I lock that out, now they can't open that one. But I leave Brave browser unlocked. So now they have to use Brave browser if they're going to use a browser on their phone because it's locked out. I can do that with Android. I can do that with my tablet. iOS, iPadOS, you can do that. I don't know about Windows. I don't use Windows. I use Linux. I don't know about Mac OS because I don't use that either. But all of those things are possible. And for fairly cheap, where you don't have to break the bank, have a monthly subscription, those sorts of things in order to make that happen. If you just need to lock your kids out of certain apps, or even accountability, right? I want my wife to be able, I need my wife's PIN to be able to open certain things so that my wife knows that, whatever it might be. Fine. The accountability can be there, and it can be there very cheaply. Good. So the other ways that you can block ads if you don't want to use Brave. You can do browser extensions. There's many ad block browser extensions where you can just download an ad blocker and that'll work fine. There are also filtering browser extensions that work, of course, only in browser. You can, if you do feel a real pang of conscience, say with like YouTube, don't want to skip the ads because that's how they make their money. Well, what I do when I get there, and I do this for certain websites and such. I know I'm blocking their ads. I know that means I'm taking away their revenue. A lot of websites have the ability to donate to them in one way, shape, or form, to give them money. Maybe it's I'm going to purchase something from the website. Maybe it's I've got a Linux news site that I frequent. He has a donate to me button, so that if I'm blocking all the ads, but I appreciate the content he's putting out, I'll send him $5. Even $5 a year is probably more than what he's getting from you in ad revenue. YouTube, you can, if you really want to pay $23 a month, you can get YouTube Premium. Or use another Google service and say, well, I'm going to pay them some money for something that I wouldn't otherwise pay for as a means by which to give them some revenue that I'm taking from them. So there is kind of a way that I've found, if the website has a store, maybe I'll purchase something from the store. Some way to give them revenue because I'm taking something from them in that I'm blocking ads. But I'm doing that for my family's sake. So that's kind of the way I've worked through that moral conundrum. Yes? They will be blocked. So, so if I just do, now of course it's not going to block all of the videos. I'm still not typing that right. As far as videos, now through these DNSs, so if we just go to randomyoutube.com, we're going to, I'm not sure why it put me on this page. Is that normal? I don't even know what's normal anymore. I use all sorts of filters and everything. No, we definitely don't want to do shorts. I know that's an area of the internet we don't want to be in. So I maybe because of the, did I keep that Brave? I may have kept that ticked that said get rid of all of the YouTube annoying things, and maybe that's why it's blocking all the suggestions. Or am I through a filter here? Wondering if I don't think I've set up the DNS. I tried to keep this tablet not too set up so that I could show you all how to set some of this stuff up. But I don't know what I've already blocked or what I haven't. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't even have the YouTube mobile recommendations. But, okay, but if we were to go to, is that Exploration Bible, Sarah? Is that the name of the YouTube channel? Sam and Andrea put me onto a YouTube channel that was pretty neat here. Is it Expedition Bible that we've been watching lately. So if I go back one, it looks like it's giving shorts. It's showing other things right now. So all of that's still there. But if I do Expedition Bible and I do any of these web pages, so right now we've got it, no ads. You're not going to see ads. It's just going to shut the ads right off. Right now we still have comments. Let's see what happens oh, there they are. So let's see what happens if I turn on a few of these YouTube filters here. Yep, going to get rid of YouTube Shorts. Those are not good. Mobile recommendations and distractions. We'll also go ahead and do social. So now I'm going to add all of those. Whoops, I didn't update. Okay, they're still ticked. We're just going to update here. And again, the more of these you add, the more bogged down your browser is going to be. This is another wonderful thing about the dedicated router. You have dedicated hardware for all this filtering, which means your computer's not having to do it in the background while it's also trying to do everything else. It frees up the resources of your computer so that your browser's not bogged down. It's that router that's doing all that blocking. By the time it gets to you, it's nice and snappy, everything's good. And because the router, it only does that, it's got hardware dedicated to that, it can do that pretty well. So we've done that now, and let's see if, let's see what happens here with our restore. So we're going to do, we're going to do Exploration Bible again, and Expedition Bible. And let's see. Oh, I don't know if any of these have updated yet. We might have to close and open our browser. So let's go ahead and close and open and see if it resets things. We'll go ahead and completely close out. Make sure that everything is still set. And both of these say mobile. It's actually possible here. I don't know if it's got me set on, it might have, because the tablet is large enough, it might actually be recognizing it not as a mobile browser, and that may affect this as well. Expedition Bible. Notice now those shorts didn't come up. Before there were all those YouTube shorts. Those didn't come up now. So now I'm going to come here, try one of these, and let's see if comments are gone. Comments aren't gone, so that one didn't work. Wonder if I'm doing something wrong or if it just hasn't quite caught up to it yet. But the filters are there. Again, I filter on the router level, so I've only been playing with this stuff a little bit. But those filters ought to help with such things as it relates to the internet, YouTube, and like. Yes, Eric?
When you're saying at the router level, is that the netgate.com?
Yes. Yes, and so I think a NetGate for their basic pfSense router, I think it's about $200 for the router, and then what you're going to do, let me show you this. There's a great deal of this that comes down to logging in and out of things and. Going to log into my router here. And this is the interface to show the router. It gives a network map. So what this shows right now are the various things, the wireless clients and the wired clients connected to the router, printers and USB. I actually do have a printer, but it's connected over wireless. So if I were to tap on wireless clients here, the two things that are connected are this is the brother printer that's connected, and then this is my tablet that's connected. And then it'll say whether the internet is working or not, and in this case the internet is not working because we don't have internet here at the church. So this is the general interface for the router. If you were going to use a pfSense router, this NetGate router, what you would do is you would have a modem from your internet. Wire comes in from your internet service provider into the modem. The modem will have an Ethernet cable that usually goes to a router and a wireless, and usually it's a router wireless access point box, same box. Sometimes they'll have the modem in that box too. I think internet service providers are getting away from that. That box, that's the router and the wireless access point. What you would do is you would put the new router between the modem and the wireless access point. So it would go, instead of modem, router, wireless access point, it'll go modem, router, then the wireless access point. And then what I would need to do in that, so this current router that we have here is both a router, and you remember what a router does, that's what takes all of those packets and sends them where they need to go, and a wireless access point. I only want it to be a wireless access point instead of it being a router as well. So I'm going to go into advanced, and then in operation mode, I would change this from router, which is this current mode, to access point. And then you see a little picture here. So there's the internet. Now I've got the router and access point, and then devices. So what I'm going to do now is internet, something else, then this device, right? It was this device, now this device will be here. And so this device is now only giving a wireless signal. It's not routing anything. And once it gets the wireless data, it's going to send that to a router, and then the router is going to decide whether it goes onto the internet. And that's where you're going to put that router, between the internet and your wireless access point. So I would switch to access point. You don't want to do that until you're ready, because if you do it too early, then you're going to have to reset it because you can't access it anymore because it's just an access point. You can't route anymore. But once you've got your router set up and you're ready to go, which you would plug your computer into the router to make sure it's all set up, and then once it's set up, you unplug it from your computer, you open up your access point, your current router, you turn it into an access point. It continues to be wireless, but now it's not using its routing function. It's disabled that because you've got a secondary router that's doing all of that. Now let me show you something else while you're in here. So every router has the ability to designate the domain name system that it's going to go to. On your sheet here, remember that the domain name system is what resolves all of the web names, www.legacybaptistchurch.net. It connects that to an IP address and it sends it. The domain name server is also where you're able to block a lot of stuff. Now, if I were to take one of these services, Cloudflare, AdGuard, or OpenDNS, and I were to come into my network settings and go to internet. Now, normally what I'd see here, most routers have what's called a dynamic IP address, which means that the internet address of your router is assigned to you by your internet service provider. And they'll rotate that. They'll assign it whatever IP address they want to, and they rotate them for all number of reasons. If you want to pay extra money, you can get what's called a static IP address, which means you own it and it never changes. That's generally for businesses. Businesses have static addresses so that everything can always find them. Costs more money if you want to do that. That's not normally what we need. So you keep it dynamic. However, the problem with a dynamic IP address is if I were to register with a domain name, we're not going to get done this week, are we? There's just too much. If I were to register with a DNS, one of the great ways that I can block things through a DNS is I log in, and I log in with my settings to a DNS, and then I can choose all the categories I want to block. Now, when I do that, I assign IP addresses of my devices to that DNS server and say, if this IP address for my computer asks for anything, you need to filter it through all of these filters. Well, that's a problem when you have a dynamic IP address. Because if my IP address is changing, and on my phone, because I've got this super paranoid person operating system, it actually filters it tries to refresh those IP addresses on its own. It wants them to change because that's good for safety and for privacy. So you can't really say, you can't do that unless you've got some software running in the background, and I'll show you that in a little bit. But what I can do is I can come to the router here, and in this internet connection area, I'm going to hit this advanced button. And in that advanced button, that's not what I was looking for. I thought that's what I was looking for. Oh, yes. There's an option here, use the following DNS addresses. So if I enable that, it's going to give me two options here, primary DNS, secondary DNS. I gave you the primary and the secondary DNSs for these family filters for Cloudflare, for OpenDNS, and for AdGuard. If I punch those two IP addresses into these boxes, then everything that goes through that router will now go through the family filters there. That's super easy to do. Now, it's going to be a little bit different on your router, but you find that area where you can designate those DNSs. And in this one, it was in the advanced filter, internet, and then again, this web address that I give you gives you some hints as to where that might be on your device. I'll show you that web page in a minute too. You put that into your router, and you've got a large degree of malware and of pornography blocking immediately, just like that. Everything that goes through your router is now going through those protections. Now, there's still a few ways around that, notably a VPN. But it's really as simple as two IP addresses. And your router right now, without paying any money to Netgate, can do that. I know that I'm kind of jumping a little bit, but any questions on that? You're going to help me see what I'm remembering and forgetting by you saying, Pastor, this makes no sense. And then I'll say, oh yeah, I forgot 3 steps. Once you've been in the world for a long time, you take for granted what people know and don't, right? So no question is a dumb question. Laura?
DNS only for Wi-Fi and router, or can that be used on a mobile devices when they're not on mobile data?
Let me show you how to do it on a mobile. So this does work for mobile as well. So we're here. I've showed you these things on the router. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect from this, and I'm going to reconnect to the internet. You notice that there's, on this Cloudflare, AdGuard, and whatnot, there's a test website. That test website is a website that you can go to see whether or not you are connected to their DNS. So, going to have to turn the hotspot back on here on my phone. It turned off because it didn't have anything connected to it for a while. So now we're connecting. All right, so we're connected to that. Now, if I were to go to, let's go ahead and go to the Cloudflare one. So nudity.testcategory.com. And this is a test website provided by Cloudflare Gateway. If you expected this category to be blocked, then you need to check because something's wrong because it's not blocked, right? So this is a test website. In other words, I don't want to have to go to a pornography website to see if I'm blocking things properly, right? So instead, they set up a test website. If this one's blocked, then everything in this category is blocked because it's working, right? So right now, this is not blocked. So now what I'm going to do on my device, again, I could go into Brave browser and I could block this in Brave. I could send it, I could set my DNS in Brave, but then any other app on my tablet is not going to go through that same DNS service. So instead, I'm going to come to my settings, and okay, now I've got to remember where here. I've done it on my phone, but they're different systems. This is a Samsung. Let me think. Okay, it would be in networks. So I'm going to, connections should be good. Okay, more connection settings. And in more connection settings here on Android, modern Android and iOS is going to have something called a private DNS. That means that they are already sending all of your traffic through a DNS service that is encrypted so that you have privacy. That's wonderful, but that's not helping you as far as filtering anything. So instead, I'm going to change this private DNS, and then I'm going to change this to private DNS provider hostname. So I'm going to give them the DNS I want to go through. And you notice on your sheet there, the other thing that I give you, other than the IP addresses for the DNS, is I give you the private DNS provider host's name for each of these 3 services. For Cloudflare, that is family.cloudflare-dns.com. So now I've put in the web address for their automatic family filtering DNS. I hit save on that, and it says couldn't connect to the private DNS. It's saying can't connect. That should change in a moment to not that. Oh, nope, I spelled cloud wrong. Couldflare. Couldflare is not going to help me. Save. Now let's try it. So couldn't connect. There it is. Boom. family.cloudflare-dns.com. So that should tell me already I'm connected. So now I'm going to go back to Brave. And I'm going to go to the same web address. And it's blocked. Now, because this is at the device level, let's open up. I already disabled Chrome. Let me go enable. Let me enable Google Chrome, and we'll open it up in Chrome. Apps. Here I am showing all the kids how to re-enable apps. Chrome, it's disabled. We're going to enable it. I'm going to open it. Enhanced privacy. Don't ever believe Google when they say enhanced privacy. So we'll just go here, and we're going to go to that same web address. So we're in a whole new browser now, right? nudity.testcategory.com. And I hit go, and it's blocked. Any browser I want to go to, it's all going to be blocked. Everything within that category is now blocked because I pointed everything that goes through this device now will go through that DNS. And that DNS has the default family filter. Now, as I said, there is a way to subscribe to a DNS service that then allows you to have more power or more control over what it is you filter, including custom filters. You can create custom blacklists and whitelists, and we've talked about what those are. A blacklist is sites that you're not allowed to go to. A whitelist is you're only allowed to go to these. The problem with those is, generally speaking, they're complicated. Now, OpenDNS is an easy one. However, OpenDNS does not have anything for mobile. So Windows and Mac it has, where you install an application and it'll automatically update the IP address every day, so that if your IP address changes on your computer, it'll change it in OpenDNS so that you stay constantly filtered. And then you can completely control those categories. But they don't have anything for Android. They don't have anything for iOS, which means as I'm on the go, it doesn't work. Cloudflare has one, and they have an app, but it's so complicated, I haven't even been able to figure out how to get it up and running. And I thought, well, if I'm struggling with it, I'm not even going to present that to you all. So maybe I just need to watch a few YouTube videos, and then it would be nice and easy. But it was not immediately evident how to get this thing functioning well. And so I didn't really want to go there. But I did find something very interesting over the past little while, and that is this AdGuard. And the reason why I found it is because I was looking. AdGuard is a subscription service, but I have found that they're trying to get their feet under them, and they have right now lifetime licenses of their AdGuard filter system for their phones for like. It's the family one, so it's like 9 licenses for something like $30 in its lifetime license. And then their DNS service is a 5-year subscription for something like $30. And let me go ahead and show you their DNS service so that you can see what this looks like. I'm actually going to turn this off for a minute because I'm going to be doing passwords and such. And Okay, so let me show you kind of the opportunities that are available if you do subscribe to a DNS service. And some of this is going to be, I don't know how much of this, because I've got their full app on my phone now, and so some of this might be that. But they offer a VPN, an ad blocker, and such, and then their DNS. So I'm going to go ahead and go to their DNS, and I'm going to go to the dashboard of their DNS. And so they run their own domain name system, and what they allow you to do is, notice it says right now, this device is not added to AdGuard DNS, which means that when I logged in with this IP address, it says your IP address is not in our system, and I could right here say connect this right now, and it would connect it to their and then I could connect it to their DNS service, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment as well, because this is kind of cool. So I'm actually able to do multiple DNSs here. I have a default service that I can run, and I have a child server that I can run. And each one can have a block list. And in that block list, I can manage those block lists, and I can add all sorts of different block lists. Notice this AdGuard DNS filter has 60,000 rules. So it goes through 60,000 different rules as to what can and can't be allowed. And I have complete control over all of that. I'm wondering why. Oh, yeah. Let me, I won't be able to do that. The only device that I've had functionally connected to this right now is my phone, and my phone's not connected to it right now because I shut all that off so I could use the hotspot properly. Let me see if it'll let me. I'm going to turn AdGuard back on and see if it'll let me do internet through it. So if I turn AdGuard on, let me see if it pops up here. I just don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. Technically, I wonder if it's going to see. Let me see here. Refresh this. Okay. We've got a DNS server called child server, and then this DNS server called parent server. And I've got two devices, Dad's phone and tablet 10, which is a tablet that I have at home. And both of those devices are registered with this system. They're both using the DNS address that I have custom made. And then what I can do now is I can look at the statistics from this tablet. And it'll show every single ad that's come through, how many times I've tried to access social media, trackers, advertisements, the domains that my device has visited, the requests, let's see, and every single web address that it's attempted to visit.
So if somebody does something, let's say, through incognito, would it show up, or do you lose that?
No, it'll show up. It'll show up. Yep. All of this incognito would not touch any of this. So all incognito mode does is stop cookies, web history, those things from being saved. Incognito, as soon as the request leaves the device, incognito mode means nothing. It will save the history here. That the history would be deleted in incognito mode, though. Exactly. So now you're going to have to filter through, because, like, you know, calendarapi.proton.me. That is just my Proton calendar app accessing my calendar information. So this shows so much stuff. System 76 blog, that's an actual website. I go to that website to keep up with some Linux news. But kernel.org, Graphene OS, Vigilant Citizen, all of these things, Maple Media, this is actually connected to my, texting app. So it shows everything. So it might be kind of hard in that sense to filter through it, because it's showing every call that your device makes. But you do notice that a few of these are labeled Google and whatnot. If they can connect that to some sort of company. But you can get quite detailed with the data here, to where if you had a concern, those concerns could be addressed. You could find the website that's being visited. Now, obviously, if we try to visit a pornography website, it's just going to block it outright because the DNS server is set to block all of those things. But you could also see those. Now, what this is not going to do, this is not going to tell you how long they're using a certain app. This cannot tell you who they're texting and what those texts say. If you wanted those, you'd have to go to a more robust service, pay more money per month. But if you have the relationship with your spouse or family where the device is open to you anyway, yes, they could delete their conversations and whatnot. But if the device is there, then you can inspect those devices in that way anyway. The traffic destinations, that's more privacy sort of stuff. The companies that are on them, Google, Samsung, Proton, F-Droid. F-Droid is an alternative app store for Android, those sorts of things. I'm not sure what the query log exactly logs. And then the servers. So this shows how many requests have come through each of the DNS servers I've set up, how many devices are on it. 0 blocks. I haven't gone anywhere that's needed to be blocked on either of my devices of late. So there's no blocks. Now, that would be the thing. If you start seeing 10, 20, 30 blocks, why are those blocks there? Who's trying to access those sites? Which device? And if I go to that blocks, it would show me by device which device is attempting to access sites that are blocked and which sites they're attempting to access that got blocked. All of that is here, and that is all available on the DNS. None of this is running on my device. This is all running on AdGuard's servers, and it's just being filtered through it, which means, again, I don't have to have something constantly running on my device bogging it down. Now, if you want more power than that, then you can get their other services and such. That's more for ad blocking and the like. This can do a great deal of that as well. So for most people, I would say that the combination of a DNS server and in simplicity, quite honestly, you do one of these just basic family filtered servers, and you add that to Brave for ad blocking, and most of you are going to be okay. If you want that extra layer of accountability, the next step of accountability would be a DNS server like this, where you can log in. And so let me show you how this works. I told you that we have this IP address problem, right? So when I set up a server here, I go to the server settings for this parent server, right? And it's got the server name. I call it parent server. This is where I can do all the block lists. The block list right here is the DNS server. You can fine-tune your settings, block malicious phishing scam, block newly registered domains. Remember how I told you that it's kind of hard to stay on top of new stuff that's coming out? Well, if you select block newly registered domains, then if proxy servers are changing constantly to try to stay ahead of things, if the thing has been registered within the recent past, the DNS server is just going to block it outright. Let me see. I don't have any user rules on this one. Do I have user rules on the child server? I might have to do a follow-up where I show you. There's some really good block lists. There's some really good block lists that I can point you to that would be good. But in user rules, you can select a device and you can check the domains. But if you add a rule, you can block a domain, unblock a domain, add a custom rule, add a new rule, block a domain. Example, Legacy Baptist Church.net. And the keyboard is not being my friend here for these. And I block that domain, and now I am custom blocking. So if I want to block certain social media sites, if I want to block things for some people but not for other people, and I can do this by server. So the basic version of AdGuard DNS allows me to create, I think, 5 servers. I could have a server for mom, a server for dad, a server for kids. I could have a server for older kids, a server for younger kids. If I want to open up certain websites for the older kids but not for the younger kids, each device is pointing to that server, to that DNS, a custom DNS, and I can customize it for each one. Lots of different ways that you can do so. Block lists you can add to make sure that you can control things generally. Now, as I said, the nice thing about this is if I go to AdGuard, see if I go to account settings, let me see if I can find. So I've got a 5-year subscription. Typically speaking, buy a subscription. I don't know why it's in euros. I wonder if, oh yeah. I'm probably going through, now that I've activated AdGuard on this, it's putting me in a server around the world. More privacy features. But typically speaking, I think this is $20 or $30 a year or something like that for the DNS service. But there's a 5-year plan that you can get on a website called Stack Social I can point you to that could get this to you for quite cheap. So then what I would do here is, you remember how we showed you how to add that private DNS web address to any device that would allow you to filter your device through that. If I go to, let me see, server settings. No, that's not it. Access settings, here we are. Nope, that's not it either. Check. Okay. How did I do it? I think maybe it was export settings. Oops. Haven't done this enough. I will have to show you again, but you can export the name of, when I set up one of these servers, child server, parent server, you can export a web address directly for that subserver, and then you just put that in the private domain area of your device, and it will point everything on your device through the servers that you have set up on your DNS. And so as long as your child is not going through and changing the DNS server in their phone, which again, a $5 app on an Android phone puts that behind a password, and then they can't do it. And as long as they can't do that, everything has to be filtered through these DNS servers that you have set up. And then you can see every single request that's made, every single block that's attempted, and you have control over every single website that they do or don't go to. Again, that's not going to manage the amount of time they spend on the device, the apps that they're actually installing. You don't want them to install apps. You make the install apps thing behind a password, right? The App Store. The App Store is behind a password. They can't install apps now. You have control over those things. If you need more control than that, and again, I encourage you to take a look at this. The Apple, Android, and Microsoft websites do have the ability for you to control all of that, including screen time. It's just going to mean you have to register your username. You're going to have to get your children a separate username. You're going to have both phones with the app, and then you can set them up for you to be able to inspect everything that's on their phone. And that is made very simple and such. But now if you've got some Mac devices, some Android devices, some Windows devices, you're using multiple systems, right? And that can get a little bit tedious. This way allows you to just cover everything in a single DNS. What it doesn't allow you to do, though, again, is screen time and the like. So there are multiple options here. And then if you want to get more accountability focused and more aggressive with those things, you can also go to other apps such as Covenant Eyes, and I can give you a list of other apps that do that. But generally, those are several $100s a year at least, and that's fine. Most of us do have enough money to do that if we need, but most of us probably don't need that. If you had even not even the custom DNS through AdGuard, but even if you just had a family filtered DNS, you would stop your children from accidentally falling into a part of the web. And generally speaking as well, let me just see. I'm going through the family filtered DNS right now. So if I were to go to google.com, I'm pretty sure I'm still on the family filtered DNS. And I might actually be double filtered because of this. And I were to go to image search. And I were to look for what's safe. We'll just try church. How safe is that for image searches? Now, one of the big problems with the internet is, okay, porn sites are blocked, but Google image search, you can find a lot of images. One of the things that, nope. Is it not? It used to, it's funny, there's some areas where I'm truly out of the loop as it relates to these things because I've been behind a router protection for so long, I don't fiddle with any of these settings anymore. Church. Anyway, these DNSs ought to flag the safe search flag, the strict image search that is supposed to let Google or whoever filter out certain images. On YouTube, on image search sites, it's supposed to flag the strict moderation of those by default. Like I said, I don't even know how. Maybe Bing will still show the safe search button. Let's try an image search in Bing. Images. See if we can see if it's flagged to the safe search. No, that doesn't show it either. Does anyone know where it shows safe search nowadays if it's activated? Image size, I don't know. Oh yeah, there it is. So safe search is set to strict. The DNS server did that for me. When it filtered me to bing.com, it immediately flagged safe search on strict because the family filter, because I'm going through the family filter DNS. My guess is that YouTube would be the same. I'm almost certain that it puts on the family filter for YouTube as well, which of course means some Christian content's not available, a lot of firearm content's not available, most conservative pundits are not available because they're all hidden behind, they count them as unsafe for families. But you'd have to fiddle with those settings. But it immediately and automatically put this to strict. I didn't do that. I'm not logged in. It doesn't have my settings. It's just automatically on strict. And Google should be that way, and any of those search sites should be that way as well. Laura?
So with the family one with the list that you have, those you can't customize.
Correct.
You can't say, I don't want my children going on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. That would have to be through that other ad blocker one.
Right. So through just the standard family block, it does malware, it does pornography, and other things that might be unsafe for families, according to them. And that one would not block Twitter or Facebook. But in AdGuard or a subscription DNS service, OpenDNS does have one for the computer as well that's free. OpenDNS is free, but only for Mac OS and Windows. But with this, and I should go and look at OpenDNS again. I wonder if they've re-implemented something where you could point, very similar to this one, where you could point your device. I'll have to look into that. OpenDNS might have a free one now where you can point your device to a customized string that would allow you to do it for free. I'll look into that. And again, parental control, block adult websites, activate safe search, and then turn YouTube onto a restricted mode. So every single time you go to YouTube, it's going to activate restricted mode. Every time you go to any of the search engine image searches, it's going to activate safe search. Of course, it's going to block adult websites. And then I've got the services here that I can block. AliExpress, Amazon, Apple Streaming, Battle.net. So some of these are gaming sites. If you don't want your kid, if you want to let them have the gaming device, but you don't want them to game online because of the dangers of gaming online, you block the servers that control the game sites. You can do that here. Cloudflare. If you were afraid that they were going to try to bypass your DNS and get to another DNS, you block Cloudflare, and you're blocking the other DNSs. A lot of these are streaming sites. Discord is a chat site for a lot of gamers. You can block that. Disney Plus, you can block streaming sites. More gaming sites. Flickr, of course, is a picture site. So if you feel like they're going to try to get onto a photo site to try to see photos that they shouldn't, you block those photo sites. And then here's another thing that you can do with a custom DNS. You can add a schedule. These sites are available, these gaming sites are available Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 3 to 5, and all the other times it's completely shut off. The social media, or the streaming, the video streaming sites, YouTube. YouTube is available for 3 hours, 4 days a week, or it's completely shut off on Sundays, or whatever it might be, right? So you can shut it down at certain times of day, so it will block them today, but it'll open it up for them tomorrow, and you can set schedules for this as well. And just a number of services here that you can activate or deactivate. Telegram, Skype, Signal. It's not going to have everything. At some point, if you want some things, you're going to have to add custom blocks. You manage the service here. You can check or uncheck all of these things that you want. Most DNSs will be this way. And you can do it by server. So you have a parent server, you have a child server, you have an old kid server, a young kid server, different times that things are allowed, and all of that. Quite powerful, quite powerful. And then once you have the server set up, again, I'll have to figure out how to do it here again. You put that into the private DNS area of phone, of tablet, of computer. It pushes everything through that DNS. Nothing can't go through that DNS because that's the DNS that's set in the operating system. And things are blocked. What other questions do you have? Eric?
Just on that,
Yes, sir.
I wondered about a thing on, I just want, from a consumption standpoint, the internet off at 9 o'clock, so we're not tempted to just, I gotta look up one more thing or whatever. Is that possible just to shut it down, or do I need a physical timer on my?
To turn off. Most routers nowadays have those built in. So let me see if this one does. We'll just keep working on. So let's see, wireless. So we've got the wireless here, advanced, wireless settings. Here it is, wireless schedule. And you can set days and hours that the wireless is activated on the router. And if you want it to shut off, a lot of people will do that at night just because they don't want wireless waves, all the time in their head. They sleep better or whatever. So they'll do that at night anyway, where you can just deactivate the wireless. Some routers will have a physical switch to activate and deactivate wireless. The nice thing about keeping it generally on is if you had an emergency in the middle of the night and you had a computer that was connected physically, then you've still got access to the internet and you're not fiddling with your router settings at 3 in the morning trying to figure out how to turn the wireless on because your kid's sick and you need to look up what that rash is on his arm. This would be a way to shut off the wireless so that people aren't lying there in bed wasting time or whatever. Good question. And every router is going to be a little different, so I can't tell you on yours, but I went into the advanced settings, and then into the wireless area, and then it was just right there in wireless schedule. Other questions? So I've probably got a little follow-up work to do. I might do those just YouTube videos that I can just link you to as far as YouTube videos to show you this is what I was talking about here, this is what I was talking about there. We might do a follow-up session at some point here. If you want me to come to your house sometime and help you with your own setup, I'd be happy to do so. As I mentioned with AdGuard, let me see if we've lost the internet, if the hotspot's still on here. Hotspot is still on, okay, good. So what I found, and I've used this site before, so it is a safe site. There's a site called Stack Social, and they kind of do promotions and whatnot when internet companies want to have promotions. You can get Windows 11 Pro for 20 bucks, right? So there's some good deals there. Never pay full price for Windows if you need a copy of Windows. Never pay full price for Office. Find sites like this. You can get it much cheaper. But this is where I found AdGuard. And what they had was they've got their AdGuard service, and I can show you that on my phone in a moment. But this family plan, a lifetime family plan to their AdGuard service on their phone, and they've got it for $18.97, and that gives you, I believe, 9 licenses, so you can use it on 9 devices, and it's a lifetime license, 20 bucks. Their VPN, if we haven't even talked about VPNs, that's more of a privacy thing, so that's not really here nor there. But the one that I was particularly interested in was this 5-year subscription to AdGuard DNS. So I got a license for 5 years for this AdGuard DNS for $30. It's usually, I think, $20 a year or $30 a year on their website. And that gave me access to their personal plan, which is 5 servers, and I think 50 devices or something like that on those 5 servers. And then you can set up these individual servers with these individual block lists. And then, again, we'll have to do a follow-up on how to put that private DNS into each of these devices, into the DNS area, and then it's just going to filter each one through it. You know, again, one of the reasons why I haven't been particularly exercised in doing this myself is because we've got a whole house system through our router, so everything's pretty well protected in our house already anyway. But I've been working through this to try to give you all practical solutions. If you don't want to pay for the router, and you're still not doing it on device because AdGuard is doing it on their servers, and that'll follow you, Laura. That'll follow this device through mobile networks, other Wi-Fi hotspots. It's always going to try to point to the DNS that the phone is asking to go to, and that's going to point through all those filters, and then everything's going to be recorded, and all of those websites visited going to be recorded. Again, it's not going to tell you who people are texting with. It's not going to tell you how long they spend watching YouTube. It's not going to tell you if they had the game open on their phone for 6 hours yesterday. It's not going to tell you any of those things. But it is going to provide filtered protection. It's going to automatically make images and such image sites go to strict search. You can deal with all of that. And for the vast majority of people, that's going to be, it's certainly going to keep your children from accidentally wandering somewhere they shouldn't. You use Brave browser, and it's going to keep you, and the AdGuard DNS, actually on a DNS level, you can block a certain amount of ads as well. One of this AdGuard DNS filter is actually an ad blocking filter. Then the other filter is the parental controls filter, right? So it will block ads at that level also. Brave may not actually be as important to you if you're using AdGuard DNS because it's going to be blocking as many ads as possible on the DNS level, a lot less for your device to do also. So DNS is probably the most versatile and powerful way to do this. A router means you don't have to go through, if you're only using the devices at home, the router means I don't have to go through every device and change the DNS settings. And I don't have to worry that someone else is going to change the DNS settings because they can't, it doesn't matter. And if somebody comes to my home, a guest, they're immediately under the blocking. So if friends come over and friends have internet device, if mom or dad comes over and mom or dad has internet device, as soon as they connect to my Wi-Fi, ads are blocked on their devices, filters are activated on their devices. So my children aren't going to see anything because they're looking over shoulder of guests whose devices are not filtered through my DNS settings. That's where the power of the router comes in for your home. Other questions? So with Stack Social and those deals, it becomes very cheap, in fact, even to use these services. All of that to say that your general modes here, if you want this kind of protection, are very basic protection, point to a family filtered DNS on your device, and use Brave. You want more control over the DNS, I'd recommend AdGuard DNS because I found it to be quite easy. OpenDNS, I'll take a look and see if you can do that for free, but AdGuard at, what was it, $30 for 5 years or whatever, doable, right? You want, and in that you can block all ads and such, but you're still customizing every single device to have to be used by that DNS server. You want to block everything at home? The easiest way to block everything in your home is just to get one of these routers that blocks. Your router might already do it. Open up your router, log in, see if it has family filters. I didn't even look. I really don't want to log into that router again. I didn't even look to see. This router may have also had built-in family filters. Many of them do nowadays. At some point, they're probably going to try to nickel and dime you with it. You have to pay them a fee per year to use their family filters, at which point you decide, do you want to use that router, or do you want to go to a router where you're going to pay more money up front, but then you're not going to have a subscription fee every month to continue to be able to use it. All of those things can be done without subscription fees. You want more than that, you really want, kind of the spyware. You can see everything that's done. You either log in with the Google services, the Apple services, and you use their services, or you get something like Covenant Eyes that's going to really is built for that kind of accountability. And you'll pay more if you go that route with the free routes through the companies. The only downside to that is that you're now having to manage it. If you've got Windows devices, Android devices, and Apple devices, you're having to manage them all separately. If you're all Mac, or if you're all, well, no one's all Windows now because you have to have some phone, right? But if you're all Mac, then you can probably just do it through Apple, if you're all Apple. If you're all Android, or Android and Windows, because Windows has an app for Android, you can do that generally through Android pretty well. Windows would be a little bit stunted, I think, but you'd have to use Microsoft Edge. You'd have to do some of those things, but doable. So those are all options that are available to you. I can't do all the homework for you, for your setup. I can't tell you all of the ins and outs of what it would look like for you. I did give you the links to where you can do the follow-up work. Oh, and let me just show you one last thing. I'm gonna take you to the setup guide to show you here because it was a little bit confusing, and then we'll be done. So the web address I gave you for the setup guide is developers.cloudflare.com/1.1.1.1/setup/. And this is the setup page for their DNS resolver. I'm encouraging you to use, any of these are fine, but I kind of liked Cloudflare's setup here. So on this page for setup, there's this area that says device or router specific guides. If you click on that, or I'll tap on it, it gives you a guide for Android, gaming consoles, Google Cloud, iOS, Linux, macOS, a router, and Windows. And if I click on any of these, so if I click on Android, then it is going to walk me through how to, so block malware with 1.1.1.1 for families. And it gives the DNS, and then it'll tell you here, go to Settings, Network and Internet, Advanced, Private DNS, select the private DNS provider host name, and then put in their particular one. They actually give a different one than here. I'm not sure. Oh, no, that's malware. We want malware, malware and adult content. There it is. family.cloudflare-dns.com, right? And that's the same one I give you here. So it gives you the instructions on where to go on your phone to put it in. And then if you're on an older version of Android, it gives you the instructions for those as well. And it'll do the same thing for all of the others, Windows, iOS, and then it's going to tell you where to go, and then you just choose block malware and adult content, and then it'll give you the DNS addresses, and it'll tell you where to put those into Windows so that everything in Windows goes through those filters. And it'll do that for all of them. So that's why I gave you that page. You go to that page, it'll tell you how. Now for routers, of course, everyone has a different router. So all it's going to tell you is that there's generally a web address, 192.168.1.1 or 0.1 or routerlogin.net or something. You can usually find that on your router, how to log into your router. And if you've not fiddled with your settings, then it's going to be pretty default. And then it's going to tell you where to go. DNS settings are usually in a wireless or a wide area network area. And then it gives you a couple of specifics for different routers and kind of walks you through it a little bit. And again, if you can't figure it out on your router, I'd be happy to try to help you find it at some point if you need, and we can get you all set up on that. So that's why I left that there, to give you all the specific instructions for any of your devices on how to route your DNS through their built-in services. You do AdGuard DNS, you're going to have some custom DNS names. You're just going to have to get that custom name and then put that in all of the places, or custom IP addresses, and you're going to put that in all the places where it asks for it. And once again, it takes a little bit of work, but you're going to have to do that on every device that leaves the house. For devices inside the house, you either do this or you buy a router that'll do it for you. Any other questions?